to the middle. I thought he had kept me on the breakaway. He's kept his rebound dribbles to the side. The goal picked up by Cleveland. The Jackets clear. No further than the red line. High ball. Arvidsson for Bill. Back to Arvidsson. Rack chance. Loose puck. Can't more. Couldn't cleanly fire. Shot it off the toe of the stick.
Editor X presents 5 steps to win over any client. Step 1. Sweep them off their feet. Bring your wildest vision from concept to production on an intuitive canvas with precise layouting tools and engaging interactions, and show them a site so gorgeous they can't help but stare. Step 2. Play it smooth. Add custom breakpoints that adjust for any screen size, providing the perfect visual experience with no awkward design breaks. Step 3. Set boundaries. Bring your clients into the process with customizable roles and positions. Collaborate.
0 shots on goal, of course. 3. Underway for seconds. Play across to the near boards. Finish outside the playoffs. Officially eliminated today. Knight was bumped off the front by Roy. Gets it back. Feeds it to the side of the goal. Quick. Ball on the side of the net. Well out of position. Allows a tap-in goal for Sean Corrali.
It's one of those games where the next ball is huge. And obviously the Blue Jackets get that goal, so get behind the puck under control. The initial entry right there looked like it was contained, but you see, unfortunately, Matt Roy loses his inside position there. Jonathan did slide a little too far from there, but then you have coverage in front with no one in front. So numbers, yes, teams where all these great high kicks and spots, they were so young that it hurt them.
Osmond drops. Finding outside of Kopitar to the net. Save by Greg. Rebound punch wide. Slow it down in time to get Reaper. Kopitar. Cancel by Gavrikov. Punch up to Kempe. Shot save. Rebound. Save. And another shot from the circle by Edler.
Kempe gets the opportunity here, then rebound in front. The process is get the feet moving.
He's needed that line change. An extended shift for Kopitar line. Roy angles it ahead. Here's Trevor Moore. Into the zone. Moore. Stopped by Verslickens with the blocker. Columbus could not clear. Exchange with Kopitar. Jersey across. Arvidsson in the middle to know is there. He's boxed out in front. Jersey whips on a shot. Arvidsson to Silver. Kopitar shot doesn't go through. Big block from Gavrikov.
The best chance probably happened right there, and that's where Gavrikov did a real good job of defending. Stick on stick a couple times. Then he ended up being right there, right up turn. Who picks up the back there?
Gavrikov again broke it up. Jersey ends up back in the Sabres. Slap shot wide. They settles. Jersey shot. Sabres looking. Those bumped out. Finally right there.
Let's get in those lanes and make sure it doesn't get through.
Ready. Right on in front. Held in at the line by Bonner.
Just countering so far in the third period. Just taking back the loose puck. Shot gets through there. The best Sabres period so far. It's maybe the only one, but it's just trying to leave one post. Traffic looks one way and finds the.
Columbus is on it right away. Here's Patrick Line receiving the outlet pass. Lining up by Daniels to the middle. To the net. Save! With the right hand. Beautiful save by Quick.
He goes over, covers gone, doesn't look like a bullet. Same situation here. And then finally at the end, you see Jonathan Quick run lining out of room. Like we've seen many times before, rebound, he goes across.
Cover by Blankenberg. Robinson run around Austin's footing. Turned over the puck. Lazat on a follow. Save Verslickens. Follow in Lazat. Bjorkstrand around the net. Goal line. Shoves it out from 2 seconds. Goal that does it.
Okay, so for the hike, there's a bunny trail or Devil's Peak. Anyone where I can...
Devil's Peak.
Oh.
So Walmart Casino Sports Club opening face off. Sit back and enjoy the second and final meeting between these two on the first ever road trip to the Seattle Kraken. Ryan Shagan plays it off the boards by Colt White. And now Michael McLeod will get doing number 5 Christmas. Face off for second in the NHL. McLeod with speed through the middle. Andreas Johnson, tight pass, and they score! On the far wing, a beautiful setup. And a basket by Jesper Bratt, who continues a sensational run this year. And the Devils break the ice early.
McLeod's going to hit this out to the outside, drive to the middle, force the lane to be open. You get to that far side, you get to see the super mode here. It's on and off the stick, right over the shoulder of Grubauer. So that is a perfectly executed 3-on-2 run for the New Jersey Devils.
Now played along the board. Igor Cherikovich getting got the buckle momentarily. Now he gets it from Smith. Cherikovich down the wall, tied up by the ears. Good to see him back out there. Smith with a jump, street jump, blocked by the right hand. Grubauer says no play. On Zenelov. Zenelov with a couple of great hits. Carolina starts the game. Unrestricted. Big deal. The Devils now. Fuller. To the side of Grass. Morgan scores.
Last gets this puck that makes perfectly. Morgan gets enough time to jump into the play. Last head off the whole way, knows that Morgan's jumping in. Right into that danger zone for Morgan for a nice one-timer. He'll put it right through on that blocker side. A great play from Seattle. A good pull-up. Delaying, allowing Morgan to give him a good one stick.
And this does have control. His escape that done with the attacking forward. Morgan keeps strong for keeping. They're walking up here, Foster. Right there, fighting up his way. Turned out by Nico Don.
Here's going to get Larson walking right down the middle of the ice. Good up. That will start a total breakout.
White. Playing the play for the injured line three. The Devils have a full-blown injury, including Jack Hughes. Now Saka. Butler. Score! Jesper Boquist. Unmarked. All alone in front. He has Grubauer dead to rights. 3:46 left in period 1, 2-1. New Jersey.
New Jersey, you see this pass right here on the backhand, over Morgan, right on the Boquist stick, getting out in front. All it takes is a couple of passes. You have to be able to make the first one, and then that second one usually brings somebody all to be by themselves, just like Boquist is there. But
The flank, awaiting his t-shirt. Here it comes, body down by Grubauer. What a save! Miraculous stop by Grubauer of Pavel Saka. Save of the game.
really good shot with net front traffic with Bastion and Pratt standing there. But on the backside, Zaka Grubauer has to get fully extended over. He gets a good enough shot on that from his knees, but Grubauer able to dive over, make that save. Really good net front traffic from Jersey to create that scramble and force Grubauer to.
4:52 left in the second, 2-1 New Jersey. Kraken has dropped a couple in a row. Devils have won 2 of the last 3. McCann, here's a chance. They score! The Dukes by the Suits. 4:40 left in the second. Seattle has tight.
Great play by McCann, though. You see the vision. He makes one pump fake. Susie jumping into the play. Is able to just delay enough, get the puck on his stick, keep Dawes frozen just enough to be able to shoot that puck on the low blocker side. One of these days, John, you're not going to surprise me. But today, you still surprise me with what you say.
Face-off win for the Kraken. Here's Dunn with a shot body down. They score! Slam home! Matty Benier! First goal in the National Hockey League!
You win the face-off. Right to the net. McCann with a good tip off the post. Beniers has to fight through the checking of Sharangovich to get to the front of the net. He doesn't give up on the play. The spinning, makes no mistake to put that one in the back of the net. Great hustle.
Now the cloud off the body in front off Flurry. Dave Tomlin's an excellent player. Broken up by Susie. I'm old enough to remember him. Now McLeod. Then again it goes back door and they score. David Severson.
Change your window. Sunday. Okay. Okay. Dad. 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 Come in.
On the weak side. Just about marking from the third period, and the Devils have got it.
Wenberg has to get his stick up. The stick is down. You don't have him to the defenseman again. Right here, the handoff. So that gives time in the opening for that lane across. If Wenberg has to stick, everyone has to stick. You might be able to stop that. Crossing pass to see the
Game time 3. Hamilton. Find the block by Grubauer. The car and it down. Great stuff by Grubauer. Reactionary save, and here comes the bracket and draft. Boakwood. Jump by Dunn. Gets the Boakwood with Dennis Ball. His shot kicked out to purpose again by Grubauer. Hamilton run after 9. Grubauer tips it down. Wilkins to the corner. Goes off the pick. Smith. Boakwood. That is the pass. Jared Gomez denied by Grubauer. Jared Gomez. Came in on the corner. Stolen by Ashton. Now here's Michael McLeod. 3-9-6. On the skate. Captured by the one, Subban. Get around at the 9. Grubauer. 7-2-1. And the presentation is ready for victory. We'll see. More timeout right off the hop by Nico Heischer. Here we go. Everly. On the high on Dunn. Keeps the zone for Everly to get it back. This is Dunn. Goes across, and here comes from the center. Shot by Moore. And it stays out. Mercy, what a chance.
This play will come high ball. And the game is right there.
6 seconds left. Everly will push forward. Final home. Lead down. 4 years. Strong. That's all. We go to shootout. There he comes. Nano having a career season with 15 goals. Takes it easy. One of those by Ryan Nano.
And comes down slowly. It's a good head for his guys. All the way to his right. Leaves him over for that nice little basket for Clippers to slide in. Doesn't have to let it come to that.
Game over, Jared Gomez. Good chance on Grubauer. Right over the middle. That's what the fuck is it? What's the Seattle Kraken defeat the New Jersey Devils in the shootout.
Shaw has changed the Wi-Fi game with next generation Wi-Fi 6 technology. Gives you next gen speed and reliability no matter how many devices you have. Unlock the best in-home Wi-Fi technology with Shaw.
Shouldn't have to pay a premium for your family safety. That's why emergency sells tires.
I was expecting baseball to entrench itself further into the lockout from hell. But it's as if they realized the sport would be in deep shit if they didn't come together. But despite tension still simmering, an agreement was reached. MLB will be returning relatively on schedule. Spring training has begun with haste. There is much to go over in an off-season full of drama and despair. Certain teams may be incredibly cheap, but even they can afford the sponsor of today's video and Raycons. Their everyday earbuds are the perfect acquisition to not only save money on payroll, but play games with efficiency. They look, sound, and feel even better than ever. Today, my Fish 4 attempts to eliminate this great game of baseball. These earbuds and my playing ability have one thing in common. They will not budge. Boasting 8 hours of playtime and over 32 hours of battery life, it's perfect for anything from lounging around to hardcore training sessions. Over 48,000 5-star reviews and starting at about half the price of other major brands, it's worth to try them out for yourself. If you're not convinced, click the link in the description box and go to buyraycon.com/U3 to save 15% off your order. That's the everyday earbuds from Raycon. They also work well when discussing the 30 teams in baseball. What are their season's expectations like? was one of the team's highest paid players for the first buyout of Chris Davis's Albatross. It would have been Carlos Correa and his $300 million contract, but that fell through in the end. The Orioles offered that to Correa? There aren't enough dollar dog nights to get people to come to this shit otherwise. The only option is to trade for Adley Rutschman and Grayson Rodriguez. Everything else will probably be traded by July. You know what else you have in this brutal division? Potential return of Matt Harvey. See what Jimmy Seafood to get us through another year. Last year was a mere reloading to a previous norm that had been expected of them. Much to the chagrin of everyone now that Boston, the Red Sox are preparing for their eventual journey to the promised land of loading over the Yankees. The starting rotation is high risk, high reward. Added to with former Yankee James Paxton and the living legend of Dick Mountain. And now bring Jackie Bradley back for another go-around. But there was something bugging me down. They lacked a legitimate stamp of certification for off-season success. Why not fortify the infield with a potential long-term complement to Devers and Bogarts? With Colorado free from Coors Hell, allow me to introduce Trevor Story. It's okay, Trevor, you're allowed to breathe the air. It doesn't cost extra here. What does is pushing for another World Series. With an elite infield on paper, it should be closer than they realize. The rest of us stray. The fortunate thing with this new age of hell is that only one of the Yankees or Red Sox can have momentum at any sort of time. In this case, the Bronx gets to experience relatively the same thing. Anthony Rizzo's back, that should be good for them, right? The free agents are pursuing the hot item. Who do you think's in charge, Daddy George? No, you'll take your aging bringer or brainer that day. I kind of believe I like it. Got rid of Gary Sanchez for unbelievable punches. Isn't that good enough? That's what the Yankees seem to be aiming for. Just good enough. They're throwing every single leg they have into the basket of Anthony Volpe. I'll give them credit for trying to cultivate a great war from within, but you're the Yankees. You have expectations. Fans aren't going to like this patient approach. Do you see what Boston's doing? You can't fucking let Tampa Bay one up you. It's a second home to the Bronx. The great cycle of talent will continue on in St. Petersburg. You've learned to never question their methods, as there will be incredible bounties that are lavished upon the Rays for their cutting-edge techniques. Wander Franco is emerging as one of the best talents in the game. And before he's priced out of the team entirely, they paid him an unbelievable haul for a second-year player. The most impressive thing about this contract is that it'll match its value and then some. The quest of revival, Corey Kluber is now a part of the rotation, but the keys are in the minor league system. There's so much more on the way. There will be plenty to keep an eye on in their great quest to secure a World Series on a budget. However, there was one thing that was a blemish to their greatness. That was their half-baked desire to go half-piece with Montreal. In a rare stroke of sanity by baseball, they realized that the idea was not only idiotic, it would blow up spectacularly. The plan was scaled off. A disaster was averted, but then they do the right thing and mend the fence with Tampa. I know that's where their best future is, but can they admit it? Last year was merely a taste of what the New Age Blue Jays can do. They've returned to Canada full time. Now they will return to prominence. Two great players may be gone, but look at what they have added for the pitching core. You think that Kuchi, Kevin Gausman, and Jimmy Garcia are huge pieces. It's what Toronto needs to get to that next level. Lucky Jose Barrios up for 7 years is another piece to the puzzle, but something is missing. They know they need to finalize the infield, beat an elite first or third baseman. Their final decision was, buy at the Great Oakland Fire Sale. Matt Chapman is outstanding. Should be a great depth option for a lineup that's destroying the pitching rotation in its path, even in the AL East. All those according to plan, they may be able to be something special. That's a word I don't use lightly. With their talent, as long as the bullpen gains consistency, they should compete for the top of the AL. All I hope is that it doesn't fall apart. The White Sox emergence into the elite of baseball, there are certain expectations of what is to be done. Disregarded bolstering and tweaking to find the perfect balance between youthful core and veteran experience. Signing the likes of Josh Harrison, Joe Kelly, and Kendall Raymond should help with both of them. Getting into the Dodgers for A.J. Pollock should be a needed refresh for both men. Even if they paid a premium for Kimbrel at the deadline, but let's forget about all that. Cubs fans may be laughing, but Southside should be outstanding this season. The only thing that can stop them is injury and underperformance. Don't let the Jericho City Tommy John now. Not to mention my Suarez and Jordan Menezes. Great. Good bonus with a new name for the team, but old habits die hard. Organizational cheapness has cost the historical simulation of American expansion at least several years of playoff runs. What they did was so predictable, it may as well rise in the East. Absolutely nothing. Their hitting core is awful. No need to try and fix it. They can get no hit 4 times this season. I get they're a small market franchise, but they aren't even trying. Should have get off the pot, Cleveland. You aren't going to make a good faith effort because we can trade Jose Ramirez. Too talented to run on such an awful lineup. The good news and bad news are that they are. Jose's getting paid the richest contract in Cleveland's history for carrying a stat sack to relevance. I already know how this is going to go. Strong pitching core will keep them in the playoff hunt, but their being cheap punts will cost them any chance at greatness. Know how I know? It's been their calling card for the last 3 seasons. It's always a shock to me when formerly fit franchises find their lost love of spending money on players and talent. Mike Gillett rose from the grave and compelled his son to invest in the franchise again. They did overachieve, but this may be their chance to strike. There are plenty of great free agents in the board. Tigers will take a swing at a free-swinging dynamo in Javi Baez. They love to fill an organizational need long-term. Don't need them as the likes of Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson come into their own. Don't stop there. Add Austin Meadows to a growing outfield. The new core will begin to form. Investing in the future will only lead to what eluded Mr. I during his final year. Carlos Correa almost came along, but the late owner's power was only so strong. Couldn't find for more money to lure him in. There are more sentimental achievements to run, like Mickey's inevitable 3,000 hits. It's been so long since he's won already. We could at least let him relive that moment in a time machine.
Still don't know this really the easiest way. Just get it in with a sample somewhere, and then shout out something else. So for us, that's extremely important because half of it.
Comes a time when rebuilds need to begin to show fruit in order to be dubbed as successful. Last season for the Royals, there were flashes of outright brilliance, but no consistency. 2022, Kansas City will choose to add to their legend by means of talent inside and outside of the organization. Pitching Amir Garrett is here to hopefully rebound and not see the Pittsburgh Pirates. But an old faces return. His weather-proof years of journey will now lead a young staff to greatness. Zach Greinke has come home. Sadly not the most important ball player in Missouri to return, but it's pretty hard to beat that guy out. Royals are a low-key sleeper considering how things turn out. It'll be a long shot, but considering their highs last year, it may be closer than we think. Daylight savings time may have passed, but there is only one clock that Kansas City follows. That's the Bobby Witt Jr. step. His greatness has been teased and murmured about from coast to coast. This season is when we should finally get a taste of such magic for ourselves. It will be a boon to baseball. I can't wait to see it. I'm the only one who's confused as to what Minnesota's doing. Last year was brutally disappointing, but the apparent solution to running into a brick wall over and over again is to keep running into it before your bones break. The names they brought in symbolize one thing. They need to break through. Sonny Gray to revitalize an aged and beleaguered pitching staff. Giovanni Urshela to replace an aging Josh Donaldson. Gary Sanchez released from his prison sentence as Yankee whipping boy. And Carlos Correa, he went here. You'd think he'd go for more of a long-term contract, but he's gambling on opting out in the next season or two. What a weird choice of team to make. The Tees? I guess if they can stay healthy and their pitching can revive from last year's slump, perhaps Minnesota earns another chance at breaking that curse. In all seriousness, how the hell was it that they ended up with Correa? The succubus relishes in your torment. You know why. Taste the glories of another championship, but you can never experience it for yourself again. The blood cost for that deal with the devil in 2017 will continue to take its toll. You thought it was just the Texans and Rockets suffering with catastrophic playoff loss. No, sir, that's just an optimistic line of thinking. Zach Greinke isn't the main cause of doing business with her. He was expendable thanks to their young pitching. Remember when you needed to sign Carlos Correa? Yeah, about that. He's got the pastures of short-term money. It shouldn't be a catastrophic loss, but losing that much star power in the span of a few years obviously can't be good for the team. I only wonder if last season was the best shot. We still have Altuve and Bregman, but Bregman's going to want to get paid sooner rather than later. They keep up in the AL West. Most of their rivals are trying to bolster themselves. Ah, yes, the Angels who don't want to be associated with that eye. Few teams make me more infuriated than that. Mostly because they should be a lot better than what they are. Shohei Ohtani even has a rule named after him so he can display more of his greatness in the batter's box. Mike Trout's coming back. Great prospects in the hitting ranks coming up at NHL in March. Just enough to gas off to be paid to play elsewhere.
Anthony Rendon hopefully not being injured to hell and back. I'd be more hopeful, but one horrifying addiction the Angels can't break is their fixation on one-year pitching experiment. I like Rachel Iglesias and Archie Bradley as well, but that's not it. We're talking about Noah Syndergaard. $21 million for a guy who's only pitched 2 innings in the last 2 seasons? It's not a 6-year contract and that's Scherzer, but this is close to it if it blows up in their face. Marty Moreno is definitely afraid of reaching the luxury tax threshold, and his moves have shown more than enough of that. We all know it's Moreno pulling the strings here. Please get him out so the Angels can finally live up to their potential. Run from it all you want, but the writing was on the wall long before this moment. More than concrete rumors of wanting a $40 to $50 million payroll didn't need Sherlock Holmes to detect what was going on. Barring a salary floor, there would be purging. Good news for John Fisher's ledger, there's no cap floor. Drop the news on this godforsaken franchise for as long as you want. I agree that Oakland wasn't good enough to make a legit claim for a World Series as assembled, but this is a team that needed to ask. Don't blow everything sky high. When I say everything, I mean every goddamn thing. The early estimates were being kind. Now down to a $35 million payroll. This is before Frankie Montas bucks off. Welcome to hell, Oakland. Sandbagging to get fans apathetic enough to allow for a potential move. The only hope for baseball here is in Howard Terminal. I hate to say it, but there's been a major setback. California happened, and an advisory board recommended against changes to the terminal. Not to mention a lawsuit is being filed against the project. Oakland, you have 2 months to get your shit together or else the A's are moving to Las Vegas. Their patience is running thin. It's been over 20 years since the Mariners have even come to taste the glories of a wildcard game. That is humiliation in its own right. They may have vastly overachieved considering every metric in the book, but all they need is a stronger hitting core to realize their greatness. Joey DePoto isn't a slouch. He will do everything in his power to fulfill potential. Adam Frazier is a leadoff option. Eugenio Suarez is an overpaid reclamation project, and the true prize is Jesse Winker. He will be the yin to Mitch Haniger's gang. A legitimate two-headed power option that will strike fear in every pitcher facing them. Their prospect pool is still loaded with talent. Don't forget about Jerry Kelenich's potential progression and Julio Rodriguez's torrid spring. The future here is somehow bright, but I'm reserved. Remember, they teach this greatness more than once before, only to fall flat. I'm cautiously optimistic. I have to keep my bases covered, you know. One of the greatest traditions in Texas Rangers history is throwing money at nearly every single thing with talent that moves. Short-term fix to a long-term problem that usually never works out in their favor, but by God, it won't ever stop them from trying to get back to the promised land. They need great bats to mask how awful they're hitting for it to come after the deadline. Their answers for it? A strong offensive catcher in Mitch Garver, one of the hottest shortstops in baseball in Corey Seager, and an over 32nd baseman in Marcus Semien. He's coming off a career year in his own right. Over $500 million invested in these men. It's never backfired on teams, have it? My issue is with the hitting. I think all 3 of them will do fine, but what about pitching? John Gray's a start, but that's another great tradition of Rangers baseball. Electing into whether either rush prospects to elimination or sign guys who don't fit their organizational philosophy. Or at least their games will hopefully be offensive slugfests. We hope not for the other team. After an unprecedented World Series title after losing both their best hitter and the pitcher, the Braves had a lot of dilemmas headed into the offseason. The main one, Freddie Freeman. Great Lakes between the playoff window of all the dark ages of tanking and the championship rewards of it all. Fundamentalists saying goodbye is baseball is business. Freeman was going to be paid well on the market, and the Braves chose to go elsewhere. These bitter feelings probably lasted for about 5 minutes. This is because they went out and replaced him with another elite first baseman in Matt Olson. He's not only younger than Freeman, but he was extended at a rate that will make him a longtime stalwart of the club on his own. Yes, it's not Freddie Freeman, but Ronald Acuna is coming back. Not to mention they nabbed Kenley Jansen for the bullpen. Starting to dip from his greatness, but he's still damn good. They'll need him too with Phil Jackson's injury. Any World Series champion will tell you that defending a title is rough. Braves will learn about how perilous this road is shortly. There's trouble in paradise. Marlins had a bitterly disappointing season, but I'll give them props for trying. You try to fix your massive catching deficit with a trade for Jacob Stallings, you at least get that. Even if Stallings probably won't hit like that again, it's still better than what they had. There were rumors of Miami looking to expand their payroll. Jorge Soler was brought in to boost their home run totals and fan interest with the Cuban population. But it feels like there's a contrast in between ideologies. Why do I mention this? It might have to do with the fact that Derek Jeter stepped down as CEO. There could be something sinister happening. Ownership might not have been willing to spend.
I don't think Forsy's working at all.
That killer pitching staff needs to be supported more.
I don't know if they can or want to do it. That's the problem. Turmoil in Miami baseball. When we keep coming back to this point, fans love him. Owners loathe him. Lopons sit in the back counting their money from the sale of their team. All this and more is in part to Daddy's team. There's a reason why they're calling the upper luxury tax tier point the Cohen threshold. It's because he's going to do everything in his power to buy a championship for Queen, even exceeding the threshold named after him. For whatever reason, this seems to mean bringing in a shit ton of players from the Oakland Bay. Marcana, Starling, Marte, and Chris Bassett conscripted to bolster the outfield and starting rotation. That's nice and all, but the Mets need more power. Injuries destroyed them last season. They need to give Billy Epler and Buck Showalter everything they can for glory. That man is Max Scherzer, the heterochromatic legend destined for making more than some teams' entire payroll. There are no excuses this season. Did they hire Buck Showalter? Did they not see how rough he looked during his final years in Baltimore? But let's be real, even he can't fuck this up for the Mets. I'll probably go to Jacob DeGrom being shut down for a month due to arm issues. Oh God, not again. When you go with Dave Dombrowski, cutting payroll is not an option. You can talk a game of being frugal, but then Dave will cut off one of your lips and feed them to his pet harem of blood-hungry sharks. You will spend and you will spend handsomely on talent, goddammit. To further torment the Mets, Kyle Schwarber is here to hit literal bombs into the bleachers. This will mostly be done at Citi Field, as all good men should do. They pride themselves as men of faith. There's the drive into deep left by Nick Castellanos, and that'll be a 5-year contract. One problem. Is everyone going to ask how this team is going to play defense? Most of their metrics suggest that they'll field about as well for Ruben's currency exchange rate. They do have a damn good starting rotation, but how about that bullpen? Paying good money for the likes of Yoris Familia and Brad Hand? Do they think this was 2018? Been garbage for a few seasons now. Dave, has anyone ever updated your scouting reports? A hard reset is underway. Saying goodbye to longtime faces last season was tough but necessary. It's not all bad, however. Nelson Cruz will continue his ball-swatting excellence as a DH. Juan Soto is still as potent of a player as the Nats have ever seen. Only he'd agree to an extension. Washington has tried to pay him the big bucks, but Soto is waiting for his time. It will come. Many will throw endless weights of money at them to hit with authority for their team. Speaking of the Nationals, they're hoping for something better, but considering the rest of their division adding, I'm not that optimistic. They'll need some serious development from their prospects to have any hope for the future. You're to keep them? It'd be nice if you played up to your prospect status. Not fall victim to injury again. Joe Torre is gone, but that doesn't mean the Cubs aren't trying to revitalize what was once their greatest era. They'll do it with new faces this time around. Young prospects in return from the trades of last season will be emerging soon. Marcus Stroman is free from the clutches of low Mets to be a mid-rotation starter and call Mets fans cancer. Perhaps rightfully so. Four-man Tommy Baez and Jonathan Villar is going to be a competent stopgap for the time being. But the real prize is international player. One of the greatest players out of the rising sun in a long time. The new face of the Cubs franchise, Seiya Suzuki. All goes according to plan, he won't be the second coming of Kosuke Fukudome. Never mention that name to Cubs fans. There will be nothing but pain. I only hope that won't be the price to pay for wiping the slate clean. Always been bearish on the Reds, and this season has justified it. You thought Oakland was the only team launching hits on their own organization? Oh, baby, you ain't seen the aftermath in Cincinnati. Thanks to cheap ownership, nearly every star player not locked down to an unmovable contract is out of the organization. We're talking Sonny Gray, Amir Garrett, the flopping Shogo Akiyama, and most of their better hitters in the core. This includes Nick Castellanos and Jesse Winker. A horrible price to pay for the cost of shedding a Eugenio Suarez. Since he may have outstanding prospects in youth, but what does it all mean when the organization refuses to spend to fortify it? Am I supposed to be impressed with Tommy Fan? The actual hell are you doing? Saving pennies means nothing when you eventually bleed dollars. Better hope those cut payrolls and TV contracts are worth it in the end. This team has become irrelevant. This year might be aggravating to witness. Nobody's wondered about how elite they're pitching for in bullpen.
We're all aware how blistering the Brewers are in that regard, and they should continue to be for a while to come. The question has always been in the batter's box sitting more than the local farm. It was the main reason why they couldn't go far last season. While they didn't splurge much on options, it doesn't mean that they failed to try. How else could you describe the greatness of Andrew McCutcheon? As a TH, I might add. Hunter Renfroe for roof in the lineup. Yeah, but there should at least be some semblance of development from the backs this time around, right? You'd expect Yelich's back to heal up this time, right? They won't waste that killer starting rotation again, right? Do we even need to go over that? Everyone knows the Tankathon is running at full speed. They're going to suck harder than anyone has ever sucked before. We'll see you when they trade Brian Reynolds for romantic baby. Or when they extend to Brian Hayes. Holy shit, the Pirates spent money, it's the apocalypse. He is home. Should have never left, but the prodigal son has returned hundreds of millions of dollars richer and friend of a divorce. Albert Pujols will have his last ride as a Cardinal, where he belongs. It would be a year full of feels and nostalgia that hasn't been experienced since Derek Jeter's ego stroke her around the world. A final ride for Pujols, Yadier Molina, and Adam Wainwright. Cardinals legends smelling out with what will probably be a World Series run, because this is how this unbelievable bullshit works. There be joy in fields, or slightly less joy with emphasis on field. Head over to Busch Stadium to find out for yourself. There's even a Steven Matz for the rotation to help out. Everything else will probably be some incredible bullshit from within as always. It will somehow win 90 games. It will take 9 years for Bulls to get back to Anaheim. Arizona is lost. After last season's free fall from hell, they're merely assuming it was an aberration and are trying to strive for that wonderful mediocrity that Sedley teams try to reach. Their off-season, they didn't do too much. Once again, they're trying to say that last year was a fluke that won't be repeated. With a team that didn't think this had Zach Davies to the rotation or Mark Melanson to the back of their bullpen, I know exactly what you're thinking. It has to do with the Diamondbacks having no idea what to do or where to go, and you'd be correct. They don't want to take a bath on their losses, and it's completely understandable. The issue is they're not good enough as constructed to do anything in the division they're in. I will give them credit for extending Ketel Marte. He's an incredible talent. All I ask is that you keep him where he's best in the NT. We will at least cover up the massive issues with the roof cables at Chase Field. Now we can see why they're clamoring for renovations. What the actual fuck? I can't read Colorado at all. They had tens of millions of dollars to get rid of their franchise base. Do nothing at the deadline last year and shit their pants. All the while they let John Gray and Trevor Story leave for almost nothing. It's embarrassing enough that they pull a sudden 180 on us all and throw a massive contract out to Chris Bryant. I get the situation was untenable, but in this case, why the hell didn't you just keep Arenado? Traded for Randall Richard and extended Brian McMahon too, which is great. Probably won't be enough to be anything more than mediocre in their division, but that's what the Rockies want. The Monforts are in their phase of spend just enough to get asses to come to the ballpark. That will work wonderfully until they trade them all for random trinkets and 3 years down. Don't give me the argument that Brian has a no trade clause. Never stop them from trading Arenado. If you're seen as the cream of the crop, you'll do everything in your power to stay that way. The Dodgers have been burning millions of dollars in the hope of winning glories beyond their comparison stage of Obama. Today, new rivals force them to keep pushing for greatness. The names of the little brother complex in San Diego and the rich daddy money bags that Steve going. Pitching is a question mark, but they'll find enough to somehow be really good. Clayton Kershaw's back for another round, so it helps as long as he stays healthy. Trevor Bauer still stuck in the league of absence, but he could eventually be free to strike out batters and be a colossal douchebag. The bullpen is loaded up with Craig Kimbrell, who had a renaissance last year with the Cubs. Ignore that he fell off a bit with the White Sox, but that's why he was so cheap to get for them. The true prize is Atlanta's great hero in Freddie Freeman. Man who will solidify first base for at least the next decade plus. LA will create a murderer's row that rivals the 27 Yankees in their minds. Look at this lineup. All you have to do is see the names and tremble in fear. Cody Bellinger somehow remembers that he can hit baseballs with authority and maybe the best hitting core in recent memory. It's so great that Dave Roberts has guaranteed a World Series for Los Angeles. Very bold, Dave. Those statements tend to never blow up in a team's face. AJ Preller's great project is falling apart in front of them. Last season's collapse still lingers in their mouths, like a bitter pill swallowed for 2 straight months. What would the Padres do to try and correct the situation? Technically, it would probably fix with bringing in Bob Melvin, but their rivals are loaded.
They have to find ways to beat the Dodgers. Most options for them have come up short. All attempts to shed the instantly regrettable signing of Eric Hosmer of Fame. Luke Voigt is taking over that event. However, they didn't go away empty-handed. The Oakland fire sale has brought them John Manaea to potentially make them one of the best rotations in baseball top to bottom. My question is, how long can the Padres keep doing this without results? We saw what happened last season. Another year of this may mean the end for Brothers' great all-in experiments. I have more hope for their efforts. I did before Fernando Tatis Jr. decided to try and imitate Easy Rider. Busted up his wrist and is out for a few months. Adventures with two-wheelers and injuries, something the NL West knows all too well. My main view with San Francisco is wondering if they're merely a one-year wonder. I know I shouldn't think like this, and the Giants are trying to make sure it isn't the case, but how will they do without the likes of Kevin Gausman and Buster Posey? How much juice do all of their men still have in the tank? Will their youth help out in the process? Then again, these are the Giants. Their efforts are like creating an endless oasis in the Sahara. Having the likes of Carlos Rodon, Alex Cobb, and Matt Boyd for the rotation should be excellent. Matt Boyd will be the next big revitalization project for baseball and become an ace. It is the law. This merry band of misfits, reclamation projects, and top prospects will be a group that desires more out of life than has been given to them. They shocked the world last season, and I fully expect they'll want to do more of the same this time around. Hopefully without the painful series loss to the Dodgers. Am I asking too much for that? You all know the season has already started by the time this video is out. I am also quite terrible with predicting certain things. It's been over 5 years and I still haven't learned. As a result, here are my fully informed and more than likely die in flames predictions of the season. My condolences to the 14th at the top. I regret nothing.
The 2021 World Series today.
Hey man, let's go here. Come on now. Another baseball season has come and gone. And only a champion remains from this point forward. But even as one team pops open the bubbly, there were those that didn't even make it close. The rebuilding, the disappointing, and the pain. Narratives were forming big time this summer. The Orioles are a blatant tank job. They need to be punished for trying to game the system. Multiple long losing streaks prove they don't care about winning. Here's my counterargument. Baltimore wasn't trying to tank this year. They just sucked. If they were tanking, they would have traded Trey Mancini, possibly John Means and Cedric Mullins, with other guys you could build a franchise around. People tend to ignore that the Orioles pitching was extremely terrible. Injuries wrecked the starting rotation, forcing, of course, young guys, shitty older guys, and burned out the lead inning. Matt Harvey had a regular starting game. That's how bad it was. Sure, they still have hope in the future, but this year was a serious setback. All they have to remember this year by is Chris Davis retiring after being all but told to fuck off. Don't worry, Baltimore. Davis may be gone, but his deferred payments will be the second coming of Bobby Bonilla Day. Just said. Enough talk from me. I think this sums up their season then. Really thought the Jays were going to make the postseason this year. Level of form they were riding deep into September. Then hitting like Ted Williams as a team in a month's time. The pitching rounding into form. Good lord, they were looking like a team that could go far. Just man, it's like they just ran out of tags. Jays in a small stretch where they were playing 500 ball in late September, and that's all it took. After the start they had, they needed to be perfect to get to the postseason. Sadly, they missed out by a game. What a fucking bummer. You just had to blow that final game, didn't you, Washington? Early season injuries and bullpen woes did them in at the end. But even for the stinging result, Toronto should feel excited about their future. They evolved into legitimate contenders this season. Don't see if their lineup the reemergence of Robbie Ray, that talent throughout the roster. It's a damn good situation to be in. Just like heading back to Canada this season, you'll be back, Toronto. And this time, you know what you need to do. Get more bullpen arms. And try to resign Marcus Semien and Robbie Ray. When their tenure as the Indians, Cleveland chose to pay homage to history. They were exiled from any sort of relevant baseball and forced to move to the fringe and enjoy life in my garden. Which will always end to repeat itself. Time is a circle for these cards. One where heavy woes continue to torment them. One where they are always a piece or two short from achieving greatness. One where ownership settles for being second best. It's a team that was no hit twice this season. Those are only the official ones. The only bats doing anything with a damn were Jose Ramirez and Fernando Reyes when he was healthy. The rest were either traded or just bad. Starting pitching tried to hold on, but then got infected with injury by local Sedgwick. Manuel Clays had an amazing season, and is the closer of the future, but they'll need more. Going to have to come from within now. I don't trust Nolan to open his pockets and get them what they truly need. He got his stadium renovation from the city, and he's seemingly content with that. In the end, Cleveland is going to be like their new namesake. Obscure and something that no one gives a shit about outside of their city. Remember roller derby team trying to sue them for their namesake. I don't think this season has me any less pessimistic about their hopes, but I will give credit for massive what they were achieving. One thing has me a bit perplexed, though. They struggled against bad teams, yet had decisive series victories against legitimate opponents. Very strange. The Tigers had some incredible emergencies. Akil Baddoo became a legitimate major leaguer. Jonathan Scope reverted to his incredible 2016 form. Spencer Turnbull had a first-grade moment for the civic year. Mickey got 500 home runs. And Bobby Grossman, Heimer Candelario, Big Marosa. It's a strange list of names. Goes to show what a good manager can do for a team. He saw an incredibly weak AL Central this year and pounced on the opportunity. What about next year? You can't trust some of these performances to be sustainable, but they do have more prospects in the way. Worst comes to worst, Cabrera will more than likely get hit number 3,000 next year to cement his legacy. And they dig the most big little team. Even there is no fear after all. I'll be interested to see what they do in the offseason. So how do you properly assess a team that has multiple personality disorders throughout the team? First form, the April swoon. So they make us all get fans by having the best record in baseball. Next up, a retro mid-2000s slacker. Sloping around and doing as little as possible by sliding back down to the basement in June. After that, the man fresh out of rehab looking to get his life together. Noticing that his life has fallen apart and seeking help for his losing addiction. And then the average person. If that. Rounds 500 to finish the year. Nothing special, but it's better than what they were. Despite Salvador Perez having a career year worthy of strong, I wonder what the future can hold. They're in a state of flux. They have some players that may age out in the next few years, but they've got some incredible talent on the way. Counting the days that Bobby Wood Jr. That's all you can do if you're a Royals fan. Also hoping that the pitching game's consistency will allow them to remain competitive for more than a month. Then maybe, just maybe, Hunter Dozier can do something within your unlimited at-bats.
Let's go.